everyone. Welcome to the Booze and Boobs podcast. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Katrina. Thanks for joining us today as we talk about some of our favorite horror movies.
We created this podcast as a way to give women more of a voice in horror. Men dominate most industries, especially film and television.
And that also goes for podcasts. We'll focus on female characters, motivations, or just expectations placed on women in horror, even if the situation is happening to a man.
We're excited you're here and we hope you love it.
Now let's get to today's movie.
Alrighty, so today's episode we are talking about Incident in a Ghostland. And if you can tell by the sound of my voice, I'm not that excited about it. And it's all Katrina's fault.
And I love that for me. Anything I can do to make Rachel do something she doesn't want to do, I'm all for it.
Well, you're doing it. I think that there's a lot to talk about with this movie. It's just not a great movie. And even when I was summarizing everything, I feel like really like the bones of it are better than what I saw on screen. To me, I get it. I just wasn't invested. I just couldn't connect with it. And it feels like I was really happy it was only 90 minutes because I was like, let's get this show on the road. Or as Katrina said, when we were going to start recording about this, she's like, you ready to get this garbage truck on fire on the road?
Yeah, and that's just an overall reference to us as people, the podcast, and this movie.
So, well, neither of us like love this movie. But I think that there are a lot of good talking points for it. And one thing we kind of talked about was adjusting the format a little. And I guess I'll decide next time we record if this format is going to be more beneficial for us as podcasters or if I just want to limit as much time talking about this movie as possible.
I liked it the first time I watched it, and then after watching it a few other times, I think the holes in the plot and everything just became a little bit more clear. It definitely, my liking dwindled over time. But I think the twist is great. I think maybe they started with the twist and just wrote around it from there. I'm really not sure what happened, but I say let's just get into it. We'll insert our talking points here throughout and let's get her started.
I don't have any faith in us that we aren't going to ramble, but maybe we won't ramble as much. And if you're listening to this, like you chose it, so I take no responsibility on how satisfied you are or not.
If I was a betting man, I would bet on us to ramble at some point. So today's movie, Incident in the Ghostland 2018, directed and written by Pascal Laugier. The main actors are Crystal Reed, who is adult Beth, Mylene Farmer, who is Pauline, Anastasia Phillips, adult Vera, Amelia Jones, young Beth, and Taylor Hickson, young Vera. So our movie opens up with a typewriter that has a praise review for H.P. Lovecraft, which should have been everybody's notice that the choices were made, because as far as I'm aware, everybody's aware that H.P. Lovecraft was not a great person.
Yeah. So yep, I agree.
So we start off, young Beth, young Vera, and Pauline, their mother, is in the car. Beth is reading her horror story out loud, and Vera obviously has a different opinion, and she thinks that Beth is weird and that the mom, Pauline, should not be encouraging her to be weird because, maybe it's something where she's like, I don't want my sister to be bullied, because Vera definitely seems like the cool girl type.
Mm-hmm.
As they're driving, a candy truck speeds up, honks at them, passes them on the road, and is like waving, definitely giving Jeepers Creepers vibes. And they're kind of hidden in the shadows. They wave to the family. The family waves back, and then Vera flips them the bird, which, as she should. Why are you being weird?
Well, I regretfully did a lot of research, and I wouldn't say that like I don't research the movies that we do discuss. I mean, I don't go like crazy into them, but I look up some other things. Like I just want to see other people's points of view and stuff like that. But this really felt like work because I don't like this movie. And there was one guy who said something about like it's very obvious that the people who are in the candy truck are like fucking creepers. Like, yes, they are. And somebody was like, maybe if Vera didn't flip them the bird, then maybe they wouldn't have been like targets for them. So,
That sounds like victim blaming right there.
necessarily call it victim blaming, but I would say maybe it didn't help her case.
No, and you'll see later in the movie that the candy truck woman does flip her off back. So I think it put them on the radar. Yeah, obviously they were on the hunt anyway. Would they
Yeah.
have been chosen? Who knows? Obviously, they sped up, looked at their cars, saw who was inside, probably had already decided at that point.
Yeah, you're probably right. So the next scene is we're at a gas station and Beth goes inside, talks to a gas station attendant, and she sees a newspaper and the article says something like the family killers have struck for the fifth time. They break into houses, they kill the parents that are there and keep and torture the children in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
So, that seems like a lot of fun, but, it was in the script, so that's what they did. Vera comes inside and is like, "What are you reading?" And Beth's like, "You wouldn't like it." And then Beth says something which, so for the most part, Beth hasn't been that mean to Vera. Mostly it's been Vera being mean to Beth, but she says, like, she summarizes the article and says that, like, these killers go after girls about your age. So
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't nice, but if the series of events that happened in the movie didn't happen, then it would have just been sisters being bitchy to each other. And I support
Yeah,
that as somebody
it's
who doesn't
valid.
have a sister.
It's valid. I
As
promise.
somebody's sister, I support it. How's that?
Yeah. As having sisters, honestly, she could have been a lot meaner and it still would have been fine. Uh,
And then I will just make a mention that even though the candy truck passed them when they were driving on the road, like I was like, like in the evening-ish time, it was still light-ish outside. Where it's dark now at the gas station, the candy truck has pulled into the gas station parking lot.
mhm.
So that was just one thing for me. I'm like, were they just like hiding and waiting for these people to come out, or like how did you follow from in front?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe they pulled over and then followed from a distance. Who knows?
Not me.
They're creepy. So after they leave the gas station, we arrive to Aunt Clarice's creepy country doll infested house. Which
Yeah.
Vera refers to it as Rob Zombie's house. And once they enter, everything is dusty. This aunt is eclectic. Everybody knows that she's a crazy aunt, which hopefully I don't end up being, but who knows
Yeah, like
where
the
life will
whole
lead me.
yeah, the whole point of like this thing, Beth had mentioned to the gas station attendant that like their aunt had died, so they were gonna go live in her house or whatever, have a fresh start or something like that. And I would say anytime someone wants to have a fresh start by moving to a house out in the middle of nowhere, they should not do that. I'm staring at Katrina because now I have been to her house and her house is very nice and I had a lovely time spending a few days with you. But can you move to civilization, please?
Give me like 4 years.
Okay, I will put it in the calendar.
Okay. So they're unpacking, fighting over bedrooms as sisters do, and Beth comes across a mirror puzzle box that when she figures it out and opens it, a scary like cuckoo clock doll. I don't even know how to describe it honestly.
No, that's perfect.
Literally. Uh and it scares the girls and that doll will definitely come into play later in this movie. We see that Beth starts her period. She's very upset. She's crying. Vera's annoyed and just walks away. And I just want to say that the mother in this said, she's like you now, which is the creepiest way to say that she started her period I've ever heard. Like,
Yeah, and
no, thank you.
we don't know exactly how old these girls are. Like, I mean, if Beth is getting her first period, judging by her reaction, like I would put her the latest at 13. I mean, I started when I was 12, which wasn't
I
fun.
mean,
First period where I was wearing khakis. That was cool. I loved that.
I don't I don't know. I was thinking 13. I don't remember exactly, but I know like in fifth, it was like sixth grade when I started my period, but like fifth grade, they had that whole video about your body's changing, and they gave us all like little packets of pads and stuff and like feminine products. And they were like, it can start any day. So for the next like 4 or 5 days, I was wearing a pad every day just in case my period came.
Oh my God.
And then I
So,
was like, yeah, this is not realistic.
so basically what we're saying is we're not going to talk about this movie. We're just going to talk about the horrors of the American education system for all of this. That's insane.
Yeah.
So
Which,
anyway, I would put Beth at 13, Vera maybe at 15,
yeah,
just to put it like they're young. They're young.
they're somewhat close in age, but not too close. But Vera, talking to their mother, tells her that Beth needs a reality check because she found some fantasy of where Beth wrote an interview of somebody praising her for being an amazing writer. Which I mean, that's fine. She's what's the word?
Delusional?
No,
Oh, that's me.
manifesting. No, she's manifesting her future here, okay? It's fine.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
So,
I mean, I'll just put it in there. So, I mean, Beth's a writer. I'm a writer. Go buy my book, link in bio. Then yeah, I mean, like when you're a writer, it does like consume you. Everything you're thinking is inspiration or something like you can pull from or that you're imagining. So, I mean, delusional's not always an insult, you guys. Delulu, as the kids say.
good use of the word delulu. Congrats.
Yes.
um, but it's obvious that Pauline coddles Beth because she's kind of the weird kid, creative type, and just tells Vera, it's fine. And as the mom walks away, we see Vera's mad about it, and she like does the silent cussing and flipping off as her mom leaves, and it's very real.
Oh yeah. I mean, yes. If your parents are not in the room, you can just think everything.
Absolutely. Behind Vera, we see the candy truck lights appear and also disappear. So now we know that they have arrived.
Yeah, and that's why I like was fine to like start talking about them like right away because we're only like 5, 10 minutes into this movie and the action it just starts immediately. Like when I watched this for the first time with Katrina, I was like, what are they gonna do for the rest of the movie if this crazy action is happening right now? It's
Leave it
like
to a
this.
man. Leave it to a man to not have any foreplay.
I was gonna say it's like if the strangers just skip to the end, but yours was better. That was pretty good.
Thank you.
So Vera, after she's had her little hissy fit, which isn't entirely unfounded, like she's
Mhm.
valid for, being upset. Her mom definitely does dismiss her. Like there's very clearly a favorite. And Vera finally comes inside, but she leaves the front door open. And then she just stalks upstairs and she's standing with Beth. And we see the mom is downstairs and she's kind of like messing with her phone trying to get signal. And she's just very focused on it. And out of fucking nowhere, the character who is titled Fat Man, so I'm using that like scientifically, Fat Man charges the mom full speed, like comes out of nowhere. Like we can barely see like where it started from because by the time you see him, he's attacking her, like shoves her against the wall. This girl sails into the wall, into like the photo frames that were still on the wall, and then just slumps to the floor.
And honestly, I would have been done right there because this dude could have been like a linebacker for any NFL team, period.
He looks like he ate five linebackers. Like he's
Exactly.
huge.
Absolutely massive. After he knocks the mom out, he captures the girl and is like dragging them by the hair down to the basement. And in passing, we see the candy truck woman flip Vera off, which is kind of where people are probably like, oh, she brought it on herself a little bit. Not true. Takes him to the basement. He picks up Beth like by her ankle very easily, sniffs her, realizes that she's has her period, is disgusted, and then decides Vera is the alternative option and goes to abuse and rape her in the other room.
Yeah, we
In
don't
the
see it, but we're not stupid.
yeah, the remainder of this movie will verify that for us. During that, Beth tries to escape, but the candy truck woman is in the kitchen, which is where the door to the basement enters. And she stops her and mentions that they just want to play with dolls, which is kind of where we're getting the, in my opinion, is the objectification of women because these people are seeing these girls as dolls, not full human beings.
Yeah.
And that's just something that I'm like, listen, we just met these girls and we just met these people and we're already like doing a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. I will take this moment to mention that the character titled Candy Truck Woman is very obviously like a man's body, like deep, manly, gruff voice, not like just very obviously
Mm-hmm.
male, not like woman with a deep voice. Like I think I have a deep voice for a woman, but like this is a man. And it's never touched on, mentioned, anything like that if this character is necessarily trans. So I'll leave like the talking points and stuff to that later, but just to kind of paint the picture that these two assailants, I would put them especially leaning with like the candy truck mode of transportation, like quote unquote freaks,
Mm-hmm.
which we can kind of go into more. Like I think I'd rather have like a conversation that like focuses on that, but right now we're just summarizing. But just to like paint it in the picture, like that it is odd. It's not like when you encounter somebody who is trans and my mind is really just like, okay, and then it just like keeps going. Like it's it's meant to be very unsettling.
Yeah. And I think that's the part that is problematic is like they're using that as something to unsettle people, not as like a backstory or a storyline. There's nothing to it.
Yeah.
They just did it.
I agree. And I definitely want to leave like a block of time to like go into that because I do have like some thoughts and comparisons about stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
but we can just keep going
Yeah.
and oh, 731 on 731. Boom. Gotcha.
I'll let you have it since I had 5:55.
Yeah, that's not going in the episode. So
No. So Pauline appears in the kitchen and starts fighting with the candy truck woman and is yelling at Beth to get away, basically, like, get the heck out of here.
yeah, we see some of the fight. Beth is kind of like frozen in the stairwell, and we hear like banging and smashing and fighting, and then we don't really hear anything. And then we see the candy truck woman kind of coming back, but then Pauline, the mom, appears again and kills the candy truck woman. And then she
Mm-hmm.
runs down to the basement when she hears Vera screaming. And Beth sees her mom, like, what'd you say, like a spider monkey attack, like jumping on Fat
Yeah,
Man.
yeah, like insane, just stabbing him and killing him, basically. And then the candy truck woman comes down and then she stabs the candy truck woman in the throat. And at that point, Beth wakes up. She wakes up much older in a very nice bedroom. She falls out of bed and is very confused.
Yeah, like she's
We've
like full blown nightmare.
we've seen all of this as what we would assume as a flashback, basically. So after she wakes up, she's comforted by her husband, and we see a shelf of all of these horror novels that she's written. She has a talk show interview to talk about her newest novel, which she wrote, Instant in a Ghostland. And when questioned about it, she's like, it's not autobiographical. It just wrote it to keep from going insane. I'm like, that sounds like something Rachel would say.
Hey, I mean,
um,
I will give the character credit. And I was thinking about this in general. So, like, obviously this is a movie which is a creation that was written as a script, and I feel like it's very common for movies to be about like writers or other creative individuals because like that is our world. And in the interview that happens, like it's mentioned like yeah, like it's not like completely autobiographical, but that it is referencing trauma that happened to Beth as a child. So we're like, she's writing about the scenes that we saw in the beginning of the movie.
mhm,
And like the whole like to keep from going insane, like it's funny, but like it's true. Like I mean, at least for me, I love writing and I love being able to tell stories, and even with the podcast being able to do that. So like I'm very lucky to have these outlets and things like that. But I mean, especially for people who have trauma like that, like it's one of the best ways to kind of like face something and work through.
mhm.
So I definitely commend her for that.
Yeah.
But then
Therapy is expensive.
therapy is expensive and Google Docs is free. So then we go to Beth and her husband are at home watching the interview with what we assume is their sleeping child on the couch with him. And this kid's all dressed up like in a little clown costume. It's very
Yeah.
odd. Like when you see
The
it,
kid,
like what?
yeah, and the kid is named Harlequin. Who does that?
Yeah, Beth is like, I'm going to take Harlequin to bed. And that's this is one thing like I'll kind of give the movie credit for. Like all of these odd and unsettling things are odd and unsettling. So
Hmm.
it's fair, I guess.
Well, and I think the one thing that they do well in this movie is that they revisit it later so that it is full circle
Yes.
for a lot of these odd details in this story that's being told.
So during the interview, after like it's still going on when Beth says that she's going to take Harlequin to bed, the phone rings, she goes to answer it, and it's her sister on the phone who's like crying and screaming, begging for Beth to come home. And I have an issue with it's we're led through the rest of this movie like Beth is gonna go home, but it's like it's immediate that she goes home. She's like, that one phone call, my sister's being crazy, I gotta go. And like, you kind of want to be like, yeah, it's my family. I'll do anything for my family. But for the sake of the movie, and I will touch on this later, I'm like, girl, you went home too fast.
You need at least two crazy phone calls. Yeah,
Yeah.
because she didn't get a response from her mother like that day, and she's like, "Oh, gotta go."
Yeah.
So I could see that. Beth gets dropped off at the end of a very long driveway, which I have an issue with. Like, drive her to the house first of all, and she walks down the driveway. Her mother greets her, and she looks the same. She has not changed. She has not really aged, and the house is basically similar to the same as it was before. We learn that Vera locks herself in the basement and is severely mentally ill, has a lot of issues, and is beaten.
Yeah.
We'll
She's
see it a little
got,
bit. Yeah.
yeah.
She's
And
got,
Beth says something like, Mom, like, why do you lock her in the basement? And the mom is kind of nonchalant about it. And she's like, she locks herself up, dear. And,
yeah.
mm, but
Which,
we'll see, like Vera can come out. Like, she's not like trapped or locked in there. Like, she does come out. I mean, when she comes out, it's kind of more jump scary and unsettling, is probably the word of the podcast. But it's just like a very weird situation.
yeah. And something I noticed is that the mother is kind of trying to be like a distraction and diffusing certain situations and odd things by just being like, oh, it's nothing. Come have a drink, come cuddle. Like the mother in this situation is basically trying to keep her where she's at.
Yeah, like not dealing with anything.
Right. Not deep diving into what's actually happening. So she sees a lot of strange things. Her mother is kind of, I don't know, she just like a water off a duck's back. And we see like a charcuterie of like candy, marshmallows, mints, licorice, and she's drinking beer and stuff. And it's like, that's a really weird assortment to put out. But throughout, we see Vera has like really severe injuries and is like very frazzled, crazy all the time, screaming, saying that they do this to me, and is begging for Beth to come back. But I'm like, Beth's there. What do you mean? But Pauline just tries to get Beth to like let it go. You can't do anything, which is like maybe that's just how she's reinforcing how she feels. Like I can't do anything, so there's really nothing that I should try to do.
Man,
So
what's
like,
it like to live without anxiety for like 5 minutes of your life? I like that's one of the things it frustrates me so much. It's like, oh, can you control the situation? No, then don't worry about it. And I'm like, that's why I'm worrying about it.
I'm pretty sure someone told me that yesterday, and I was like, you shut up. Because if I have control over it, then I'm not worried because then I can make a difference. I can control that. If I have no control, then I am concerned because I can't do anything about it. It's going to happen to me. I don't want things to happen to me. I want to do the things.
Yeah, I
Maybe
totally get
maybe
that.
it's
And
just being an earth sign. That's what I'm going to blame it on.
I mean, I'm also an earth sign and I will say I am mentally ill. But
Um,
but that's just me. Actually,
so
it's not just me. There's lots of us out there and we should not be afraid or feel ashamed to speak on it. So there you go. Back to the
this is your
podcast.
your scheduled programming. Um, so this is where we see Beth is like chained up to a bed upstairs and is dressed as a doll. And it's like she didn't do that to herself because both her hands are restrained. And then Beth is locked out of the room by some unseen force. And we're at this point, I was very confused in the movie the first time watching it. And then she comes down the hallway being thrown about.
Who does? Who comes around the hallway?
Your mom.
Not
Um,
my mom.
the next thing we see Vera being tossed around and beaten down the hallway by like some unseen force. And it was very confusing the first time watching this. Like, is this place haunted? Because what's happening? So basically, Beth starts having some like visions or dreams of the candy truck woman, and she hears words being spoken like, "We broke your sister, now it's your turn."
Yeah, she sees her
Um,
like moving around and she's like running away from whatever is hurting Vera and then locks herself in a room. She looks through the little keyhole and we see like kind of like a little form of the candy truck woman. But then it like cuts to inside, we see her, and then the candy truck woman is inside, and then Beth wakes up again. So it's like she had another nightmare, but when she wakes up this time, like her face is kind of like all mangled up, like she's got like a black, like puffy eye and stuff like that. And she's in the basement with Vera, and she thinks that Vera is the one that like hit her and stuff.
yeah, she thinks that she's just hitting herself. But Beth starts, yeah, seeing flashbacks of like being in the house for that first night. And then she just keeps having nightmares of waking up in this house, basically. So Beth wakes up finally in her true reality, and her face is beaten. Vera's face is very, very disfigured and beaten. And she thinks that Vera hit Beth, like hit her. And Vera talks to Beth through like coming back, accept what happened. Mom is dead. And so basically, Beth now has to relive all these things because she's forgotten basically of what the true events were.
Yeah, so like it's kind of revealed now we're seeing Beth and Vera as children. So Beth kind of made up this whole fantasy where she's an adult and successful and is a writer to kind of just not be where she is and, just kind of like disassociates.
Yeah.
So Vera is like crying and begging for her to come back, was young Vera trying to like keep her sister with her. Like she didn't want to be alone. She didn't want to deal with like the abuse by herself. So there is a really cool shot when like the switch happens and Beth's hair is like all in her face, and it kind of looks like it could be adult Vera, but then like they move her hair to the side and it's back to being the kid. So we're like, oh shit.
Yeah, so this whole time we were bamboozled into thinking she
Hoodwinked,
was fine.
hoodwinked, led astray.
Lied to.
Yeah. So it's a good twist that like, oh, like it was just a dream.
Yeah, and I did not see it coming. So I was like, oh, that's not something I thought was gonna happen. But
Yeah. Beth kind of just like breaks eye contact with Vera, looks over to the side, and Vera's like, you were talking to them like they were real. And it's two like paintings, and there's one of a single man who looks a lot like Beth's husband from her dream, and then a little kid dressed up like a clown. So Beth takes what's around her to kind of apply it to her dreams and her escape therapy.
yeah.
So now that we're back in the past present, there is the real threat that the Fat Man and Candy Truck Woman are still in the house. If we're going off of what we know from the newspaper article that the parent is killed and the children are kept in the basement and tortured, and that the Candy Truck Woman and Fat Man live with them. So we know that they're in the house, and Vera is very disfigured. So it's obvious that she has gotten more abuse. We don't know exactly how long it's been that Beth was like in her fantasy. So it could have been days, weeks,
I
hours.
wouldn't,
We don't even know.
yeah. And I wouldn't say it would be longer than maybe a few days to a week because like as in the next scene, the Candy Truck Woman comes down to the basement. Vera tells her to hide. So she's in a wardrobe. The Candy Truck Woman pulls her out, takes her upstairs, and starts putting doll makeup on her in like a little room that they had set up. And as the camera like pans around, Beth sees her deceased mother with her throat cut in the like through a glass pane or a window or something. And like her mother is pale but hasn't decayed or isn't looking gross at this point. So I don't know how long bodies take to start decomposing, but my assumption is
But it
they
was a
haven't been
very
that long.
easy, like, oh, recognize, like, that's my mom, which
Yeah,
is awful. And Katrina had made a note, like, imagine having to like relive that
yeah,
event like every time like she comes back. Because I would assume by the way that Vera was talking to Beth that she's probably disassociated more than once, but
mm-hmm.
this just happens to be the time that we've gotten. So and that's another thing. Like it's not like a it doesn't necessarily change the movie if we know that she's disassociated more than once or something like that. But there's I feel like the movie just leaves a ton up to the viewer, and some of that is totally fine. Like it's nice to be able to sit and postulate all of these different scenarios and really kind of get into it, but there's also a line, it's like you've given me nothing, so
Right.
I don't find any satisfaction of like even being proven right about a theory or something like that, you know what I mean?
Well, and when I watch a movie, I don't watch a movie to work. Like I do like mystery, but I don't want to have to like run circles around theories to understand at the end of this what really happened and why. So
Yeah.
a little bit goes a long way, honestly, and they really don't do it. But when Beth sees her mother, we see like one tear fall as like the Candy Truck Woman is like putting her blush on. And so what we've realized is the Candy Truck Woman is getting Beth ready for the Fat Man. And
Ugh.
she's like sets Beth up on like a little mantle along with all these other dolls. Like this room is just chock full of dolls. And something that I felt like is like the Candy Truck Woman, in my opinion, kind of takes on like a quote unquote motherly role in this as like caring for him, providing him dolls, like making sure he's satiated, whatever. And it just enforces the whole unhealthy connection and relationship that a lot of mother sons have and even mother parents have to where they support their sons through even the most atrocious acts. as a real life example, like Gabby Petito, and even more recently, there was another incident where another girl was murdered, and the parents knew about it and were helping the son like cover it up.
There's definitely a conversation to be had here once we
Yeah. So
get
that
there.
is something that we will talk about a little bit because I could ramble. And I'm trying not to.
Yeah, we're according to our summary notes, we are almost done talking about like the movie scene.
I think
So
we're doing great.
we're doing
Okay.
such a good job.
So Beth is in this room with all these dolls, and the fat man comes in. He's limping because earlier Vera had mentioned that she like stabbed him in the leg and it only made it worse for her. So Vera has warned her, don't cry, don't make noise, don't move, because it'll only make him angry and it'll only be worse for you and your punishment. So he starts assaulting the other dolls, like sniffing, touching, the whole 9 yards. And one of them makes a noise and it pisses him off. And then when he takes Beth, she's snuck like a little hairpin and she stabs him in like the shoulder and tries to run. And in my head, I'm screaming, the jugular. Like,
Okay.
because she had, I get she was in somewhat of a compromising position. Like, she's 13 or whatever. She's in a high stress situation. But I'm like, you got to go for the eye or the jugular now. It's life or death.
Well,
Just
you're
my
correct
personal
about
opinion.
all of those points to consider for context clues. My favorite thing, but I think that the way they did it, because like when Fat Man like picks up the dolls and stuff, he like lays them over his lap. So like it is a very awkward position, and this guy is huge. So it's like I don't know with the way that Beth was moving if she would have gotten any further. I think that she maybe should have tried to like double tap, but I mean, she at least got the guy off of her. And then like Fat Man like throws her, she falls on the floor and she kind of freezes, but like when he gets up and moves, all of these other dolls like move. And I don't want to say like they come to life, because there was the mantle that Beth and the other dolls were on that Fat Man like picks from. But then on the opposite side of the room, there's just another bunch of dolls sitting there, and they're all making noises and they're saying things like, you're ugly, we hate you. And it's weird. It's dreamy in the sense that like there are dolls that talk, but these dolls are not meant to say these words. But it's also a weird thing because we can hear what the dolls are saying, so it kind of takes us out a little bit of what the present really is. But whatever, that's just another thing from the movie.
Yeah.
Beth hits Fat Man with her typewriter that is still like in the upstairs room, and tries to go to the door to the stairs, but it's locked. And then Candy Truck Woman is like has a sledgehammer like beating down the door. And in the time between when Beth is like trying to get out and the time Candy Truck Woman can get in the door, Beth throws her typewriter through the window to make it look like maybe she jumped. So right. Candy Truck Woman goes outside to look for her, and then Beth goes downstairs to get Vera, and then they end up being able to escape.
Yeah, which she did a great job right here. So I was like, I know Rachel's always a fan of the double back, so I think Rachel would be proud.
I saw that note. Yeah, because I mean it's kind of a convoluted scene between like her, like she does like hide in like that closet with the doll for like a second, and the doll starts making noise. But she ends up, being able to get out. But I like, yes, that is my gosh. I hope that somebody who doesn't want to kill me, or somebody who does want to kill me, is not listening to this podcast, because they'll know all of my exit strategies, so they can like get me.
Well, if it's ever a stalker, you'll know that they listen to the podcast, and then you won't do the double back, and they'll assume that you do, but then you know that they think that you won't, so you will. I confused myself. Okay, but
well, and here's the thing about anxiety, you guys, is every situation happens at the same time. It's because they think that I won't, which means I will do it, but then but they know that I'll think that I won't, so I'll do it. So then I actually won't do it at the same time. And
literally like the Princess Bride with the poison.
The Princess Bride?
The Princess Bride? Princess Bride?
What are you talking about? Oh,
How,
like the iocane powder.
yes.
It's like, you must have known that I am not a
Yes.
great fool. I honestly, I heard poison and I immediately went to Emperor's New Groove.
The poison for Cusco. The Cusco's poison.
I'm like, he's talking a lot, but I don't get what the
No.
same thing is. But I came around. I got there.
Yeah, we got there for a second. It took us a second, but we got there.
See, this is what happens, you guys. Katrina
So
wins her
close.
bet. We were gonna ramble. We're so
So
close to the end
close.
of this fucking movie, but we just can't shut up.
But we can always cut it out.
I won't.
They'll never know.
Kayla said from the sleepaway camp episode that she could tell that I edited it because of like the random shit I just like left in there. And I'm like, I thought it was funny. And I mean, it is. Everything I say is funny, but I guess I have a signature.
You have a creative signature. We all do. And I am just anal about things. So
I'm gonna edit Katrina loves anal. Anyway.
These two girls, it seems like they're running such a long time because it literally goes from night to day during
Yeah,
this
they're
scene
like,
of them running through the woods and the pastures and running a long time for somebody who's been abused and locked up and malnourished. Like, this is exhausting. During like the next morning, it seems like they're in a pasture next and they finally see a highway. And just lo and behold, the writer decided, let's have a cop car pass them. These two girls are very lucky in the sense of they're also very, very unlucky.
the cop stop, and it looks like it's the same road that they were driving in from the very beginning. And I'll say, we didn't mention this in the beginning, and I was like, I don't even know what to say. So in the very beginning shot, like it's the road and like a little pasture, and then we see like this what looks like a little Amish kid like running out of like a little field like toward the road onto the street right after Beth, Vera and their mom have like just like passed that little section, and it looks very much like a Children of the Corn reference, but
Literally Jebediah right out of it. Like,
Malachi.
I was just pulling out a name. I don't know their
Well,
names.
no, because I've seen this movie like one time and I was watching it with one of my friends, and it's just really funny. For anybody who knows like the story of Children of the Corn, like it's not important to this or whatever, but like this kid looks exactly like this kid. And as soon as I saw it happen, there's just a line from Children of the Corn where like the like older like bully, like not like a lackey, but you know, like the enforcer kind of a
Mm-hmm.
kid, like he just like screams at like the other people. He's like, Outlander! I mean, I do use that phrase kind of more often than I should. And just seeing that like that little kid, I was like, Outlander! And this is the point. Like, this had absolutely nothing to do with the movie. We don't know who this kid is, where he came from. If we're supposed to assume that maybe he was a victim that got away, like there's nothing there. Like it would be a benefit of the doubt to assume that maybe it was a victim, but it wouldn't have been in the same area.
Right.
So I don't know what that was.
So there's a man and a woman cop that show up, and the girls are very afraid of the man, and he very like kindly gets away from them and just goes to like call this in, and the female cop is trying to talk to them, see what their story is, who did this, and Beth goes, it was an ogre and a witch. And then Vera said it was Vera refers to them as two men. So at this point we get like even Vera is unsure of if this is, you know, if the candy truck woman is supposed to be a woman or a man. Maybe Vera's just like, this is what I got. So as the girls are being saved out of the woods comes the candy truck woman, and she shoots both of the cops and drags the girls back into the candy truck and brings them right back to the house.
Well, but and also here's the thing. So when the male cop was on the radio calling in what was happening, you know, he says something like the girls say that they were at Aunt Clarice's house, which is like another version of like the pronoun game, but they figure it out basically that they know like the area because the gas station attendant like said something. I don't know what her like in is with the cops to have that description come across, but it ends up being correct and it was in the plot, so whatever. And we see while the cop is on the radio, headlights coming from the other side that look like they're on a truck, and the cop like waves them forward, and it ends up just being like some truck on the road.
Hmm.
And the candy truck woman comes from where the girls were behind the woods walking toward the road to kill both the cops. But then the girls are in the truck with her. So
Right.
where was the truck? We've never seen Fat Man drive the truck because I don't even think that
No,
he
he
was
was
in the
back at the
truck.
no, he
So
was at the house when they arrived because he was like doing something because he got injured, and when they arrived, he was in the house already.
yeah, so where was the truck?
She Wonder Woman did. I don't know.
It was in the script, so that's what happened. But it's very deflating because the girls get like recaptured and Beth kind of immediately like later days, boy, I'm out. And Vera is begging for Beth like not to disassociate again, but Beth is like la 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 la, going to my fantasy world now. Goodbye, which is me like every day of my life. So, I mean, I get it. And then we flash forward to adult Beth, who is now like either, I mean, she is the guest of honor, but I think she's also hosting a party.
Yeah, seems like it.
So, for like another book release, like she's being celebrated, and as she's walking around now, because we know that Beth like disassociates and pulls inspiration, we see like the guests that we like see close up are all people we've seen before. So, like the cops are there as guests, the gas station attendant is there as a guest, and then we also see her mom. So, like, we know for sure, we're back like in a dream.
So Beth is at her party. She sits down, and then some tall, gangly man sits next to her, complimenting her storytelling, and don't change one word, and ends up to be her idol, which is H.P. Lovecraft. Yeah. And then Beth sees younger Vera, like in a nightgown, all beaten, running through her party away. And she starts to get up and like follow her. And the mother stops her and says, "There's nothing for her over there," like with her sister. And we see Vera on the other side of a door that has like a frosted glass pane, banging on it, like screaming for Vera to come back, come help her. But the mom still says, "No, stay here. Stay with me." And Beth says, "That's my sister," and runs towards the real world. And I think that this is the scene. Some people have speculated it was a different scene,
It's
but
this
in
one.
my opinion, it's this one where young Vera, the actress Taylor Hickson, they were telling her, bang the glass harder, harder to try and get the shot. But the production used real glass instead of prop safety glass, and it broke. And when she fell through, it cut her face, and she had to go get 70 stitches, I think, in total. She ended up suing at one point, but dropped it because she was able to find like work after a while. But for me, it just kind of proves that like they were careless, because I mean it's also the younger actress. So like I don't know how old she was when she was starring in this movie,
She
but
was 19.
yeah, to be 19 and have to suffer like a facial disfigurement from like your job, which your whole job is your face and your acting, that's awful.
Yeah, I saw something like she didn't even go to the premiere or anything because she was in like recovery or like a physical therapy or something for
Yeah.
it. Like I didn't look like too far into everything, but like I saw the same thing and like it was not good. And it's also like it's so sad.
Well,
That was
in
so avoidable.
absolutely. Like they were just cutting corners, being cheap, probably, and just being careless. And I think the cover photo for this movie is, I think it's Beth with like the doll makeup, but it's like a cracked doll's face. And part of me is like, you didn't have to crack the face, because that's what happened to young Vera. And I'm like, rude, first of all, because I don't know if she got a settlement out of it. They never really talked about it. I think they probably did it behind the public eye or something. You never know.
It's really
Um,
sad. This girl, I mean, not only to mention like the material to have to like act through
right. Like this is gruesome to have to,
and then like
I
to
think,
literally be like cut open. Like
yeah.
that sucks.
Honestly, this movie was not worth it for her, and I feel bad. I'm sorry. for Taylor. So when Beth is pulled back into reality, it's when she's actually being pulled out of the mirror with it's the mirror with the doll, right?
Uh-huh.
So Beth snaps back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity, and is pulled out of the doll mirror with like the cuckoo clock doll. Rachel's very disappointed in me right now.
Actually, I thought it was pretty good because it was so smooth.
I couldn't hold it in. So the fat man starts choking her while the candy truck woman watches, and then Vera is also in the other room. I think the candy truck woman eventually attacks her. Like they're both being attacked at this point. And the fat man is shot by a cop who comes in to save them. And then the candy truck woman gets up, but then tries to attack the cop and is also shot to death. The last scene is Vera and Beth are on stretchers being loaded up into like separate ambulances. And for me, I'd be like, no, we're going in the same one. You're not separating me from my sister after this like turn of events.
I know. I think that that's kind of like something. Like I think like you can only kind of fit one in there and like they're both patients, but
No,
it was
I'd
weird.
I'd be like, no, if I can, I'll make it happen. Like, like I don't care.
Yeah, and we get like
Uh,
this moment of like niceness because like while the girls are being loaded on the stretchers, they like look over at each other and they're like, "I love you." So like
They
the
see Beth sees their mother in the window, and they also see a body bag being loaded up into like a coroner's van. And the paramedic, tells Beth that she's very brave and asks her, "Do you play sports? Because you must be strong." And Beth says, "I like to write stories." And then it
that's it.
ends.
Yeah. There's one good job for us for kind of like being done with that part. Yay. But like there's so much. So like just to like talk about the very end, it's like so when Beth like snaps back to reality as a kid again and she's being pulled out of the mirror, it's like, okay, well, did she go into the mirror before she would have escaped and then like was disassociating at that point? But the cops did show up, so like they must have like actually physically escaped, her and Vera, because
Mm-hmm.
like they're both physically in different areas. And it's just one of those things that's like I'm fine if you want to play with like the time space continuum, but like whatever rules you're making, stick with them. It's
Yeah,
not
and
that I'm dumb and I can't figure it out. It's like, no, you're just changing your rules.
I think there are some people that speculate that the ending is her disassociating again and they didn't actually get away because, whenever they're being attacked by the fat man and the candy truck woman, like the police never showed up. They're still in the basement, things like that. And I'm like, yeah, but in all her disassociation, she was older and
True.
like
See?
and
True.
safe, older and safe. So I'm gonna go with it. It was real. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I will compliment. I like the point of like the mom in the dreams. I'll call them dreams, like they're not dreams, but like whatever. Of being kind of like nonchalant and like telling Beth, like, don't worry about it. Like, there's nothing you can do. Like, stay with me because like it is safe there. And there, I mean, really, like in traumatic situations, like there are like pieces of your brain that like can break.
Right.
So I like that being like a physical representation of like, this is safe, stay here. Cause I mean, I can't imagine if that kind of stuff was happening to me. And we all like to say, like, well, I would have done this and I would have done this. Like, maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't. Shut up.
Yeah.
So,
Hope you never find out.
exactly. So I like that having like the physical manifestation of like the tether that keeps her to this dream world because we saw in the beginning that her Beth and her mom did have a close relationship and her mother was very supportive.
Yeah.
So
And I think
while it is very like off kilter and unsettling and a little creepy and we're like, what the hell are you doing? Like, of course it would have to be that way.
Yeah, and I don't think it's out of the mother's characteristics to coddle Beth and, like, oh no, you're fine. You're okay. So it made sense for it to be the mother. And, Vera never disassociated. Is that because she's more tethered to reality and is less creative and didn't have that bond with her mother? I don't know.
It's a good point to bring up.
Yeah,
So
because imagine like after this, Vera has to remember everything whereas Beth only has like little images here and there. So like,
Yeah, and I mean, and trauma does affect everyone differently. So, I mean, even just having both options displayed is kind of nice. I saw several things and like read reviews and stuff like that, and it's very polarizing the idea that this movie is just so misogynistic. And I would love to hear what your thoughts are on that.
I I have a hard time like picking 100% one side. And that just goes with like a lot of things. But like I do think that it really portrays, violence against women and the objectification of women, like not seeing them as like full human beings. I think that's very heavy in this, and I think the lack of backstories to any of the characters is what makes it a little bit harder to swallow. So like if we knew Beth and Vera a little bit more, or even if we had this from like the villain's point of view, I think it would have been a little bit easier and maybe people would have seen it as less misogynistic. I doubt it, but I do think that it leans towards being more misogynistic than not.
Yeah, I saw some stuff relating, so the director, I guess he did another movie called Martyrs. I don't know anything about it. I didn't even look it up, but I just kept hearing people talk about it
I've
and
seen
being,
it.
oh, you have?
Yeah.
So they were talking about how that was like a better movie, but a lot of it still has like the same theming of women on screen being abused.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, oh, okay. Well, the way you say that makes me
It's
nervous.
Martyrs is actually it I mean it's pretty gross in my if well and the justification for the like they at least explain why they're justifying the violence against women as, religious, I guess, reasons at the end. I mean, no spoilers, I guess, but it's tough at the end. I'm like, ugh.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about it. And my thoughts are kind of along with you. Like I can't pick like 100% one way or the other. Like on paper, yes, technically it would be misogynistic since women are the targets and are being abused. I There was one YouTuber I saw, I should have remembered his name. I just looked at so much that it was like, well, where is the line really between what is depicted in like art and movies and stuff like that versus like glorification and stuff like
Mhm.
that, because like yes, there are similar instances like this that happen, and it's kind of along the same lines like Scream. It's like, movies don't create psychos, movies make the psychos more creative, where
Right.
like there probably are people who watch violent movies and are thrilled and excited to see violence happen against women. But like my chosen genres of a lot of things, horror, like dark romance books and things like that, I don't know, maybe it's my trauma. I'm like, yeah, like I would choose to consume this media versus like fluffier things. Like I don't think that anything is so black and white that way. So I don't have a reference to pull from Martyrs, but you do. So I mean, would you qualify the director as like yucky because these are the movies that he's making?
I wouldn't say that he's yucky because of the and I know some other people reference Tall Man, but I haven't seen that either.
Oh, I have.
Oh, we'll see.
Look
People,
at us.
look, you put us together. We got a whole slew of information.
Yeah, I
But I,
saw people didn't like The Tall Man. I mean, I thought it was like fine. That has more to do with like children being abused. I don't remember like all of it, but like that was like the focus of like
mhm,
kids getting like kidnapped and stuff like that by like
yeah.
the tall man.
Well, and there is abuse against children in Martyrs, but mainly like women. So yeah, and really the plot of the story, I didn't think it was that great. It seemed unrealistic, but I mean that it's a movie, so it's a movie.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was saying like in the beginning. It's like I feel like the bones are there, but there's not much like to go off of. Like,
I think maybe there are more creative ways to hint at, I mean, because they never just like flat out showed the like worst parts of this movie. They heavily hinted and, talked about it. But I think that there are probably more creative ways that aren't, I don't know. I'm not a writer. I don't know.
to go back to a point like I mentioned kind of while we were recapping everything, is how like the fat man is like this big scary dude that like mostly just like grunts, and
Mm-hmm.
then Candy Truck Woman is like a man kind of a thing. Like I want to lean into like the themes of them like being like freaks. So we hardly get to see their faces like full on at all. Um, but then like Fat Man, like he's huge. I mean, he's enormous. We look at him, his face is a little disfigured. He's kind of got like a cleft lip.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole thing, like between like the two of them, kind of reads like circus, like rejects to me, kind of a thing that like how you mentioned that Candy Truck Woman kind of takes care of Fat Man like her kid. It's kind of like a found family thing. And this is all me projecting because the movie didn't give me anything to go off of. And when we had Candy Truck Woman, like in the beginning, when Beth is like creeping up the stairs and talking about how they just want to play with dolls, like Fat Man is only ever referred to as a they. So,
Yeah. And I think their versions of playing with dolls is she dresses them up, he plays with them as he does. And I think the fat man never speaks. He grunts, so he is more likely, mentally disabled. And that just, the only real backstory on him is when the dolls are all making the noise and he starts hearing insults like you're a pig, you're a piece of shit, you're a liar, you're like stupid. And so we can assume, he was bullied. But that's really the only assumption we could make about his past. And I don't even know if there's an assumption we can make about the Candy Truck Woman's past either.
not really. I mean, it's a man dressed as a woman and taking on like that controlling role. Like the Candy Truck Woman always drives and is the one like preparing the, sacrifice, so to speak, or whatever. So like to be like very, very baseline observant, I guess it's like, those are still like traditionally men's roles to like, I mean, drive and shit. I mean, and maybe I'm just saying that because I hate driving.
I really saw it as more of like a mother child role than like, or maybe even just parent child
I mean, yeah,
kind of role.
yes, absolutely. But then like still like acting like the movie itself gives us no reason or logic to have.
I don't think that they're related by any means.
No, I don't. No, I don't think that they are. I think that they're just like a found family kind of a
Mm-hmm.
thing. But the movie hasn't given me anything to go off of, so like I'm just pulling things out of a hat, making all these assumptions. And if it was, in my opinion, if it was a true trans representation where it wasn't part of the story or the point that it was so obviously a man dressing as a woman, like it wasn't a Buffalo Bill situation where we at least got some insight that like he wanted to dress up like a woman and act feminine. Or in the new Barbie movie, there is a trans actress playing a Barbie, but just playing a Barbie. Like it's not mentioned or brought up, but it doesn't have any relevance to the plot. It's just another Barbie
Right.
versus this movie where feels like it's pointed that like that it's supposed to be odd and unsettling that it's a man dressing up as a woman because Fat Man is
Right.
also an outcast too. So it's like why go this route? Like I can see like definitely both of them like I guess I mean I don't want to call them good villains but like they're good at being like scary and creepy.
Yeah. And gross. And I think if, in movies, maybe they're getting better at this. I don't think so. But if you have a character who is trans, then you should probably have a trans person playing that character. Whereas where we see in the credits, like it's a man actor who's bald, the wig falls off in the end and reveals that they have no hair. And there's really no other feminine qualities other than like the way that they dress and that they want to do makeup on dolls
Yeah, exactly.
and they have a
So,
wig.
yes. And like I'm all for representation that the thing that makes somebody an other isn't the plot point. Like, and that
Mhm.
goes for trans people. Like, Barbie's a perfect representation of that. Like, it was a person who was trans who was just a character. Like it doesn't need to be addressed because it doesn't matter. And the
Right.
same thing like about gay stories, like Bros was really great for that because like there was like a coming out thing and like there
Yeah.
were like complications, but like the whole point, like it wasn't like Love Simon where like the whole point is that this person is on a coming out journey. So like it's nice to see representation that doesn't just deal with whatever the other factor is. It's just
Yeah.
a thing. Versus this movie where it's like, why? Like, why did they have to be? What was the point? You gave me nothing to go off of because it was obvious that there was something there.
Yeah, and I think that it's something that can be dangerous because people like to villainize trans people and make them out to be scary people or men who dress up like women just to get into kids like women's bathrooms. I'm like, and if that's the case, you're scared of men. You're worried about men,
I'm
not
very scared of
trans
him.
people.
Yes. Well,
So
truly. And to even compare like what how we mentioned and like used sleepaway camp in our Pride Month, it wasn't the fact that Angela was trans because Angela wasn't trans.
she was traumatized.
Yeah, exactly. And
And we
we
got that
don't,
backstory.
and it was like a weird moment, like that was like unsettling and off kilter because of Aunt Martha, but like they at least gave you like some kind of overhaul and logic to it. This
Right.
is just like it's unacceptable and it's unforgivable. And I'm not saying that they can make movies about it's hard. It's there is so much gray
I
because people can be represented, period, and just be represented without explanation. But I think if you're going to go these directions in a movie that already doesn't make a whole lot of sense,
mhm.
then this is what I'm going to focus on.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to have something that's, I don't know, like something that's more of like a sensitive subject, then you need to do it with care. And I don't think that this was done with care. I don't think he probably ever spoke to a trans person about this, or even a drag queen, or anybody who is a man that became a woman, or a man who performs drag. This is not a drag or a trans person. This is just
A
a
villain.
man they put a villain that they wanted to make mysterious, I guess, and make
Yeah,
maybe it's the mystery of like who is this candy truck woman that was appealing, but it didn't work.
to kind of go off of that a little bit, like and to bring up like the backstory and everything. So, I mean, if you listen to this podcast at all, like I love the movie The Black Phone, and Katrina didn't connect that much with it, and her one of the issues that you had with it was that we didn't get a lot of backstory to the grabber.
Right.
And in my defense of that, and I went over this on the episode, it's that, well, the movie, even though it has the grabber in it, and he is like a big bad, the movie is about Finney and his the people who are on Finney's side, like seeing things through that lens. Versus, so for the Black Phone, I feel like it's excusable and you can just be fine because at the point where Finney is captured and we're living with him as a prisoner, it doesn't matter what the grabber's backstory is because it's very in the moment. Incident in a Ghostland is playing with this back and forth thing, and I mean, yeah, in the same avenue, like there were newspaper things, and like we know that like there are killers about, and like in Black Phone, like the boys had been kidnapped and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So like for both of them, they have that same thing going. Like we know that the family killers are out there, but like there is little interaction. Like it really does just seem that this was Pascal Laurier, whatever his name is. I don't even care. like just created something to have like abuse shown out. And it's fine. Like I think you can talk about trauma and I think you can talk about ways to cope with it and how people do, but it's like if you're gonna make these villains, like why do these villains have to be like these villains to have anything
Yeah,
happen if not to be just sensational?
give us a reason as to why they are.
Literally the simplest thing. Like all we know about the grabber is he likes to kidnap boys. He likes to like play games with them, like Naughty Boy and stuff. I
Right.
mean, like there is something, and we still are kind of getting like feelings. Like the grabber, the grabber makes me feel things. The end. But these two, it's like, okay, like you're just circus freaks, like getting your jollies by creating abuse that I will go out on a limb and assume you will deliver abuse because you were abused. Fine,
Right.
but like the movie should tell me that. I shouldn't have to work this hard for every single one of their plot points.
A 5 minute flashback would have been suffice.
Literally
Like,
anything.
yeah. I never saw the candy truck woman talk to, like, have a conversation with the fat man. So, like, their relationship is so obscure. And I have no idea even what their relationship is. Cause, like, the one time that he got hurt, she was like, ugh, and like goes upstairs to like check on him. But like, they don't interact
Well,
really. They don't have conversation really.
they don't have any conversation, but like at the very end, like when the cop comes in and kills the fat man, the candy truck woman is like very upset.
Yeah, but that's it. That's the
But that's
only
it.
emotional connection we see between them.
Yeah, so like they're just buddies who are killing people. We don't know anything, and that's what's so frustrating. And I saw every single video I watched today, like about people who are watching this or whatever, they were like, "This is so good. Like, I definitely recommend it." And I'm like, and like I said, every single one of them that I watched was men. So it is completely a different experience, and that's why we made this podcast in the first place. But like I don't get it. I don't see
Yeah.
it. Like I don't relate to it. I don't get it. I didn't enjoy it. And there's a difference between like things being unpleasant, like the black phone with, Finney going through all of that like abuse. It's not funny. I don't enjoy it, but like it pays off and it's good and it's emotional and it's impactful versus this. I was just like, okay, more fighting. He's burning
Mm-hmm.
dolls to create dread that he's going to assault this girl. Okay, it's like not yucky enough to be torture porn, but it's not good enough to warrant the violence we see.
Yeah. Like the storyline and the plot, it's, there's really no meaningful conversations anywhere. Like it's very surface level. It doesn't go deep enough emotionally or within the characters for it to be like, oh my God, that's happening to Beth. You're just like, okay, that's Beth.
Well, yeah, and it's
And oh
like
my God, that's gross. Oh
one
my
of the
God, that's
reasons
horrible.
one of the reasons we could summarize this the way that we did is because like yeah, like there's stuff going on where Beth is back at the house, adult Beth, and she like sees these things that seem like out of place and weird and like she sees like these visions and blah blah blah, but like we can skip through it because like who cares? Like all it does is just it's going to relate you back to the fact that she's just pulling inspiration for her fantasy. And that's fine, but just like let's get a move on or add something else. And like in my opinion, like the twist of it being a dream is revealed too early. Like they could have played with it a little bit longer because we still have almost half the movie after the twist is revealed where they're just being abused, escaping, and then getting pulled back. So it's like
Yeah.
that time we went through, it could have like formulaically, if that's a word, dramaturgically, been more impactful. Like even if they just followed like your basic like 90-minute movie, like horror tropes, timing wise, and like your all your beats, it would have paid off better. But and I know that like the director's French and there's like this new like French verite, like extremism, where you're just like showing all of these horrible, awful things that people go through. Like, absolutely, like I guess like there's equality, but like I don't like it.
Yeah. And that's okay. We don't have to.
We don't have to, and I don't.
Yeah.
Um, Do you have anything else you want to say?
Overall, would you recommend this to somebody to watch?
No.
No?
I
I
don't
would
think
say if I knew the person liked certain like twists or whatever, but this is not on the top of my list to recommend.
I kind
I,
of felt I kind of felt bad when I was watching it with Marissa, like knowing how I kind of felt about it. And I felt like the exact same. Like when I was with you watching it, I had all these questions and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And you were just sitting there in
yeah.
silence and I had to do the same thing. So sorry, Marissa. But before the twist was revealed and she was just at the house, she was saying stuff. She's like, the house looks the exact same. The mom looks the same. The mom doesn't care. There was a point mentioned towards the beginning when Beth got back to the house that she was sending her mom money to
Mhm.
try and like help with Vera getting care. And the mom said that she was like selling some of the antiques that were in the house. So she's got money now to be able to renovate. So like it kind of like answers the questions a little bit to give you some like suspension of reality where like it is a dream, but like haha, we're playing it off like it's not a
Yeah.
dream.
I think they
I
could have put a lot more things in there to be more confusing, even, like give us a little flash of, oh shit, I'm actually in the basement. Then, like, but in her nightmares, it was very confusing as to when she was having a nightmare, she was in her fake reality, or like, yeah, it was confusing, but it not in the best way possible.
I almost
So,
wish it would have been like more confusing so
yeah.
then like things could have been answered. It was just so mid that like we didn't get anything from it. Like I was just waiting and then I would focus on like this one thing, but then like that's the question that doesn't get answered or something. So it's like they just built up things to like create tension but then went nowhere with it.
Yeah.
Like
Like,
how many
if,
times did Vera have to have like an episode or something to
right,
signify that there was shit going on? Maybe
like,
as a short, it would have been very impactful. But and even for like I'm a huge fan of a 90-minute movie. Get me in, let's go. I'm done. Like we don't have to do like these 2.5 hour like long drags of
mm-hmm.
movies just to like build things. Like that's not my taste. But for being a 90-minute movie, do something with it. Like, why did I sit here this long? It felt like 2 hours.
Yeah, and even if he had like, oh, this is something unbelievable happened, like Vera handcuffed herself to the bed and locked the door somehow, like, and then give us some time to kind of forget about it and like let something crazier happen. Give us some time to forget about it. And then like ebb and flow. And like give us some highs, give us some lows. But if it started out real violent
Yeah, the
and
the beginning
just
scene was really good because you're scared. You're like, what is going on?
and
They
then
set up the family dynamic in the beginning really well that there's tension between the sisters, how Vera feels about how her mom treats Beth versus her, and then the fact that like they're gonna start somewhere new, and then there's the attack. Like,
and which don't have your best scene of the movie at the very beginning, because then we're just let down the rest of the 70 minutes that's left over.
yeah, very true.
So
I mean,
those are my thoughts.
yeah, I mean, this is gonna be really fun to edit because it's like it's just an hour and a half of me being like, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. Which is just like a normal day of my life, honestly. Um, but yeah, I think the points were good to talk about. The movie is not. It really sucks because Crystal Reed, the gal who played older Beth, she's in Teen Wolf, and that was a very pivotal show for me in my youth. So that could have been cool, but it wasn't, and I'm sorry for her.
Do we know our next movie?
It's gonna be my birthday, so I get to pick, is all you said.
Okay, because I was gonna say we could hint at it if you wanted. Um,
Um,
so
I mean, I don't know. It's September, so we could do.
it's gonna be fall. I mean, we could, yes, since the newest one just came out, but I don't know if you love that movie too much.
I do love it too much. I was just thinking, I was like, well, it's gonna be my favorite, so do I want to do Insidious or The Conjuring? And they both have Patrick Wilson being very hot, so what do I choose? What do I choose? But it is
I
my
mean,
birthday, so I get whatever I want.
there you go.
So that's the hint is I get to pick, so you're all in big trouble.
Um, on our next episode, give yourself 3 hours to listen. This is your formal warning. We may have to split them.
Thanks for listening. Sorry for the subject matter, but that's what makes podcasting real work, is when you don't like it. I like podcasting with you.
You're welcome.
Okay. I guess that's it.
I guess I like podcasting with you too.
I don't want your pity.
Listen, okay, I will give you this. I don't think I would see myself doing a podcast with anybody else. So you would be the only person that I could feasibly say yes to this to.
This isn't a recording. I love that.
Oh, it's already gone to her head. I went too far.
Okay. Well, that's it. We good?
We'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.
Thank you guys for listening. We hope that you enjoyed our episode, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Find us on Twitter or Instagram to request a movie, or even just to discuss your thoughts at Booze and Boobs, or send us an email, boozeandboobs@gmail.com.
Yeah, and we're working on turning this into a thing. So if you can please follow us on Patreon, our account there is Booze and Boobs also.
And what are some of the benefits to joining our Patreon?
Oh, Katrina, I am so glad that you asked. As a patron, you will get early release episodes, bloopers, mini episodes where we showcase scenes from the movies that we're talking about, or just conversations that we're having that we had to cut from our recording.
All that and more. And they're fun tiers. You can be an A cup, a C cup, or you can join the Triple D Plus group like us.
We truly appreciate your support, and we look forward to growing our following to create more content for listeners like you.
So we'll see you next time, or else.
Yeah, let's end it with a threat.